Today we're going to work on the bracket design shown at the beginning of chapter 6. The first thing I want you to do is to check your startup. I had you do this earlier in another design, but I want you to do it now as well. Your startup should be set to 1. So you can just type startup in the text box and see that it's 1. If your startup is 1, when you come up here and type File, New, you'll get this startup menu, which allows you to either start from scratch, open a drawing from here, load up the wizard, or use a template. Here we're going to start from scratch. So we want to just quickly choose Imperial and just click OK. So now that we've started our drawing, the first thing we want to do is to set up our grid spacings and to check our grid spacing. So we're going to go into Tools, we're going to go into Drafting Settings, and I'm going to bring this up from my other monitor. And we want to just check to see that our snaps spacings are set to 0.5. Our grid spacings are set to 1. And actually, we can set them both to 1. Excuse me. 1.0. Snap on or off. We can control it here, but we can also control it down here from our menu as we need it. And actually, it actually turns out we don't even really need our snap. And we're not going to use our snap. We are, however, going to use polar snap. And you'll see that as we go through the drawing. So, in fact, I'm going to turn the polar snap on. And then I'm going to go over to polar tracking. And I want you to make sure that polar tracking is on. Your incremental angle here should be set for 30 degrees. And then your object snap tracking over here should be set to track using all polar angle settings. Finally, again, this is just a default, but you should make sure that this enable dimension input, where possible, is turned off. And by now, everything should come up with as the default. Hopefully, all your toolbars are coming up as well. So I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to move on. Now, you need to set up layers. And I'm not actually going to go over setting up the layers with you. What I'm going to do is simply come over here to my other drawing, my drawing 1 here, and just open up the layers and show them to you. You can actually set these up yourself. You can pause this video and set up the layer yourself. But these are the exact layers that are set up on page 6.5 in the book. And I've used the exact colors, again, as specified in the book. And I've used the names as specified as well. I have abbreviated them a little bit. And as you can see, they end up ordering themselves in alphabetical order. So the order changes a little bit, but otherwise they're the same. For the center, I use center 2. For hidden, I use hidden 2. And phantom, I use phantom 2, as we have done pretty much all along. The other thing that we're doing here in this drawing is we're beginning to add line weights. So we're changing some of the line weights from the default setting to a different setting. So as you see in the book, there are 4 line weights that are being changed. So you can go ahead and change those line weights as well. So change these colors, set up the proper layer names, set up the line types, and then set up the line weights. You can go ahead and pause this video and then continue on when you're done. Now, when you are done, you should end and leave and close out the layer properties while selecting the construction layer. And there's actually two ways to select layer. One is to just click on it, and the other is to actually click right here on this green stack of layers. So if I click here, you can see the selected layer changes. So I'm going to select the construction layer and then X out of this. The next thing I'm going to do, and this is located on page 6-8 of your book, is we're going to set up the construction layers. And what you're going to see is the construction layers are actually going to let us draw this drawing in about 5 minutes once we complete the construction layers. So here they actually ask us to start with a world coordinate. So they want us to start at the world coordinate 3-2. So we're going to start with a construction line. We're going to go to construction line. And then because we want to start at 3-2 or 3-2, we're going to just type 3-2 and hit enter. And we'll make a vertical line. And then from that same point, 3-2, we're going to make a horizontal line. Now, if your grid is not on, you can turn your grid on and off from here. And then your snap can be turned on and off from there. You need to put your snap, turn your snap on and off. So having the grid on helps us a little bit because it lets us see where our grid lines are. And if you look at the lines, you may or may not be able to see them depending on whether you're looking at this video on a phone or on a large computer screen. But these brighter lines are actually the major lines, and there's a total of, it's actually hard for me to tell on my screen, but it looks like about 5 or 10 lines in between. To get a sense of what the size of our drawing is, the next thing we're going to do, again from page 6-8, is we're going to put the line in that's 5.75 inches above this line. So I'm going to hit offset. I'm going to come down here, type 5.75, enter. I click on this line, and now you can see that's the line that's 5.75. So that's the top of our drawing. So we can adjust our scale thusly so that our drawing will fit within this range. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start making all these horizontal lines. Now, from this vertical first horizontal line, there's one line that's measured 1 inch up. So we'll add that line in. Again, offset, come down here, type 1, enter, click, make sure we're moving up, and that puts our line in. And there's a second line which is 4.5 inches up. So we do the same thing. Now we could come up here and go to offset again, but we can also just come back here, and this is a good thing to point out. This little box here will allow us to set recent commands. So if I click here, I can see my recent commands. I can just click offset, come down here. Remember I said 4.5, so we'll type 4.5, hit enter. We want to be from this line. That puts our line in 4.5. Now the next lines are actually a little bit tricky. They actually come from this top line, and we have two lines, one which is 1.75 inches down, and the second one, which is 1.75 inches down from the first line. So we're going to go back to offset. We're going to type 1.75, hit enter. We're going to click here, move down. That adds the first line. Now we're already set up for an offset of 1.75 inches. So when we click on this line, and move down, we will automatically add that second line. Now at this point, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. And if we look at our drawing has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horizontal lines. If you have any questions, you should get your ruler out. Remember, that's this guy right here. And measure these lines and check your dimensions to make sure you put them in correctly. And then you've added them properly. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the vertical lines. So we have one vertical line that is 2.875 inches from this first vertical line. So again, we come to offset, come down here, type 2.875, hit enter, click on this line and add the line. From this line then, we have a line coming back in this direction that's 1.625. So put that in, offset 1.625, enter, click, put the line in, and another line also coming back from here of 0.875, 0.875, click, move back, hit the mouse. Again, I may have been saying enter instead of hit the mouse button. So when you make these lines, you always hit the mouse button to complete them, not the enter button. I do apologize about that. Offset. The next line will be from here 2 inches over. You have to come down here, type 2. When we're in the text box, we are always hitting enter to complete. I click, and I click again to complete it. And then we have 1.5 inches out and then 0.5 inches back, which is the same as 1 inch out and 1.5 inches out. So let's, again, choose offset, type 1, enter, click, click, and then type 1.5, excuse me, type offset again, 1.5, enter, click, and click. Okay, so now, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. Okay, so I think we have all our lines in. Again, if you have questions, bring your ruler out. You can measure. So I can, for instance, maybe I'm not sure that this distance here is 2, so I can measure it, or that this distance here is 1.5, or that distance there is 1. You don't necessarily have to go and click to complete in order to check things. But you can then move it around as you need to in order to make sure that your dimensions are correct. Okay, so from here, once we've done this, we're ready to draw. So we're going to go into our object layer and we're going to start drawing. So the picture of the parts we need to draw is shown on page 610. And now you're going to see the beauty of spending the time to set up these construction lines. Because all we need to do to draw this is basically follow the construction lines to draw the part. And it literally is That easy. So we've just drawn one of the drawings. And we can go through and draw the second drawing. And I'm going to start here. Excuse me. We'll come down, go over to there. We are going to, let's see, come up to this point, go over to there, hit escape. Now, what do we do here? We have to go back to look at the original drawing. And what we see is that there's a diagonal there. There's a diagonal right here, and it's at a 30-degree angle. So if you set up the drafting settings properly, and I'm going to go back into them to show you them, the polar tracking should be on. Incremental angle should be 30 degrees. You should track at all polar angle settings. Snap should be on, and then we should be on polar snap. So once you do that, you start drawing a line from here, and you should see that 30-degree line. And remember, it's not going to show up at 30 degrees because 30 degrees is really over here. But it'll be 30, 60, 90, 120 because it's 90 plus 30. And all we do is bring it up to here, and then we bring the line over to there. We hit escape. Over here, we need to make an arc. So we go over to our arc. We choose start, center, and end. Start, our center, and then our end. Again, a reminder, if your arc starts coming in this direction instead of this direction, hold down the tab key or your tab button on your keyboard, and then that will correct the arc. So we need to add an additional line here. And then we need to add 2 circles. So I'm up here, I choose circle diameter. I have 1 circle diameter here of 1.75. And I have a circle here of 0.625. Now, if you notice, when I went to grab this second circle, I actually came over here, but then I went back up here. The reason I didn't choose this circle is because this circle will default to a radius. But the circle up here lets me choose what I want, and then it will stay at the last choice. So it stayed at diameter, and in fact, it was initially set at diameter, so it automatically gave me a diameter. I didn't really want to choose a radius because then I would have had to take 0.625 and divide it by 2, which isn't difficult, but there was no reason to do it. Okay, so once we've done this, the next thing we need to do is bring in the hidden lines. And the hidden lines will tell us where these holes are on this drawing. And then we also have to have hidden lines to tell us that there's something going on because we have this piece that sticks out. So there's going to be a hidden line right here. So we're going to go over to our hidden. And over here, I'm going to start with line. Just going to draw a line there. Now we need to make another line which will correspond to here, so we can start at this point. We don't hit the mouse button, we just track over. So I'm just tracking. I don't hit the mouse button until I get to here, and then I draw my hidden line across. And I'm going to do that at the ends of each circle. Now remember, the way these drawings work is they don't give you a complete picture of the part. A single drawing doesn't. You have to look at both drawings to actually understand what's going on. So all these hidden lines, potentially that could mean there's one hole here and one hole here. This doesn't really tell you that there's actually two holes and they're both centered at the same location. What does tell you that, though, or what gives you an idea that that's probably what's going on, is when we put in a center line, because we're only going to add one center line. If there were two separate holes, then we would have to add two center lines. So to add the center line, what we're going to do is I've changed the layer to the center layer. I'm going to start with a line, and then I'm going to use a snap from. The reason I'm going to use a snap from is because I want to start the line not at the end here, but I want to snap from some point out here so that I get the line longer and at a known length. So I'm going to just do my snap at -1, 0. So now my line starts there. I guess it turns out I could have just snapped right to that intersection. I forgot that we had that line there. And because I know that we're 1 inch away here, this is 0.5 inches wide, I should make this 2.5 inches long, and that will snap it exactly 1 inch from the other side. So that takes care of our center line. I haven't put in center marks yet, and I'm not going to do that yet. We'll do that when we do dimensioning. But what we need to do is we need to add our fillets, because we have radiuses or radii that we need to put in. So let's choose fillet, and then right here we have a radius of 0.5. So I'm going to come over here, type R, enter, type 0.5, enter, and then I click here, and I click there, and I see it puts our radius in. Then I'm going to come back to fillet. I'm going to type R, enter, 0.25, and I actually have 1, 2, 3 fillets of 0.25. So I'm going to do this using the multiple. Type M, enter, and I'm going to click here and click there to do that one. Then I'll come over here and I'll click there, and then I'll come up there and click here and there. Finally, I'm going to turn off my construction layer. So what you can see here, well, what happened when I made my fillet, we lost a piece here. And that's not all that uncommon, because we only had one line here. So we need to add another line back in. So I went back, turned on my object layer, and it looks like we can just add the line in like that. And now our drawing itself is done, except for the dimensions. So I'm going to end the video now, and we'll continue with the next video.